So she goes through in this article and just kind of lists the different, more vulnerable emotions that may be under the surface of people's anger. The first one she lists is hurt. When you feel ignored, devalued, unlovable, not good enough, what have you. People tend to express that with anger because it's more comfortable than expressing hurt, because I think a lot of times people, particularly of the male species, equate hurt with weakness and maybe a lack of control. It's not really something that they want to identify with, so they tend to express their hurt feelings more with, angry outbursts or whatever. So what may need to happen in those scenarios is maybe just sitting down with somebody and being like, I feel like, you don't care about me when this happened, which is, it's more vulnerable, so it's sort of uncomfortable and awkward to do. And then she lists some other things like anxiety. Anger is sometimes expressed in place of worry, fear of being close to someone, self-consciousness, sadness. There's all kinds of different more soft emotions that are kind of usually expressed with anger. And it sounds like, based on what you've told me so far, that maybe some of your anger stems from being hurt. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about rejection being sort of like a pattern in your life. So maybe we could look at that and then learn how to identify, what's really going on. Am I really angry, or am I feeling something else? And then you could use anger as your sort of warning sign. Like, oh, something's going on. I need to figure out what's really going on under the surface. What am I really feeling? And then the second half of that would be learning how then to express it for what it is, instead of those sort of explosive, just angry outbursts that we've talked a little bit about. So, can you think of maybe a time specifically where you may have felt hurt or felt rejected and then expressed it with anger? It could be recent. It could be all the way back to, school days.
Well, I know back in school, I was a little bigger than a lot of the kids. Fat-wise. And I got bullied a lot. People used to say a lot of pretty crappy stuff to me, and eventually just got to the point where if anyone said anything to me, I'd just, get pissed off and fight them and, protect myself.
Okay. So what was the feeling when you would react by, fighting? What was the maybe more vulnerable feeling underneath that?
Hurt. I don't like when people make fun of me. Who does?
Because it's
rude. Yeah, especially in school. People normally did it just to make themselves feel better, and that makes you hurt even more. It's like they're using you to get a rise
Sure, yeah.
out of people. It's embarrassing you.
Kids are awful like that. It can be really nasty.
I did mean things too, but they got it more, I guess.
Okay, so that's a great example. So you expressed yourself with anger by becoming physically violent.
Mm.
But really, if you peeled away the anger a little bit, you'd probably start to see some humiliation, some maybe feelings of rejection, not fitting in, tough stuff.
Mm.
What about with your divorce, maybe a little more recently? Was there any feelings of humiliation there?
Kinda, talk to your wife one day and she tells you she's with someone else. It's kinda, I don't know, I was pretty hurt. Lashed out, and things just got crazy from there.
So that pattern of expressing humiliation through violence, anger, the threats that were made that we talked about, that pattern of expressing humiliation with violence and anger from your childhood and in school, you've kind of carried with you into adulthood.
Yep. It's kinda hard to stop doing something.
Old habits.
Yeah.
Can you think of any other, maybe more vulnerable feelings that were underneath all the anger surrounding your divorce?
Well, I guess if you trust someone, you're with someone for a long time, and you get married and make a commitment, and they're just with someone else, I don't know. I think that would hurt anyone,
Maybe that what you just described sounds like betrayal.
Yeah, I'm not good with words.
That's okay. It's hard to, in the moment, when all those feelings are there and it just comes out angry, it's hard to really dig deeper and figure out what exactly am I feeling right now. It's hard to do, and that's half the battle, is figuring out how you're actually feeling. And it takes some practice, so no worries. It'll take some time, but that's great that you were able to pinpoint a couple, humiliation, betrayal, hurt. It's a great start.
Good.
So then the other half would be learning to express